If you ever want to generate random numbers in Excel, and for some reasons you might need to, then there are effectively two functions that will help you to do this. The most basic and the most straightforward is the rand function. To get this to work, you simply pick a cell, type equals RAND, open brackets, close brackets, it takes no parameters, and when you press return, you will get a random number between 0 and 1. You can see that I've got 0.709189. Now, if I want to generate another random number on the same formula, I simply need to refresh. So if we go to formulas, I can say calculate now, and it will recalculate. And you can see I get another random number between 0 and 1. Every time that cell or the whole sheet is refreshed, I will get a different random number. Now, if you need your random numbers to be higher than 1, then you simply use a multiplier. So we can take that random cell and say equals whatever random number you give me, multiplied by 100, will then give me a random number between 0 and 100. So every time I calculate, you'll see that the random number regenerates. And then in here, if I'm only interested in whole numbers, we can do, as we've seen previously, use an int function. So just give me the whole number version. I don't want any of the decimal places. And then I should get whole numbers between 0 and 100. So each click on the recalculate gives me a different random number. Now there is actually another random function, possibly even easier to use than this one, because this one returns you a value between 0 and 1, and you then use a multiplier to get the range covered that you wish. If instead you want to use a random number and it has to be between a set range, then we can use equals rand between. And here you simply give a bottom and a top value, and your random number will be generated between the start and end point. If my random numbers must be between, say, 50 and 100, then the numbers in here will only ever be between 50 and 100. And you can see I recalculate and the numbers pull out. You'll also notice that the numbers are integers every time, so I don't have to start thinking about using an integer function. Now, the title of this particular lesson said how to generate random numbers and values in Excel. Well, both of these functions only deal with values, either the rand, which by default is between 0 and 1, or rand between, which is any whole number between a lower and an upper value. If we want to return random values, for example, in sheet 2, which is TBL employees, we may wish to return one of our employees as a random selected choice, perhaps this month's lucky person. Well, how we can achieve that is to get Excel to randomly pick one of the IDs, then use a VLOOKUP to return the person that we're after. So let's go back into the random numbers. Well, how do we make sure that it picks a random number for an ID that we have? Well, we could ask it to do rand between the lowest and the highest of our IDs and then pick out the right person. That would be one way of doing it. Let's try that. So it's equals rand between. Our bottom value is actually going to be the min, so the lowest value in column A, close the min function, comma, and then the highest value is actually going to be max of column A. Close the max function, close the rand between, and return. And you can see there it returns me 20, but every time I recalculate, it returns me a different ID. So the function here is using min, the lowest value in column A from the employee sheet, and then up to the highest value in column A of the employee sheet. We then need to use that in a lookup. So let's use a VLOOKUP here. VLOOKUP, open brackets, the random selected ID number. Table is going to be everything from A1 to wherever the end of our data is. As we're only looking up the name, we don't need the rest of those columns. Column I wish to have returned back is column C, which is the third column, and then false to tell it has to be an exact match. Close brackets, and it gives me Kate. Every recalculation will give me a different randomly selected person from my employees list. So we're using the rand between to generate a random number between the lowest ID and the upper ID, and then we use a VLOOKUP that we've already seen in action to take that randomly selected number into the employees list and bring me back the name of our lucky employee of this month. So it's random numbers in Excel per se, and then using those random numbers, in this particular case, to select an employee.